All right, guys, I am back with a brand new Star Wars update. And the Hollywood Reporter just dropped some big news in regards to Star Wars. Now, if you've watched my last couple of Star Wars videos, you know that there's a lot of controversy surrounding Star Wars right now and Lucasfilm over there at Disney. We've got Kathleen Kennedy going full force with her whole mantra of the Force is female. We know she's getting female directors, writers, also actresses to be in a lot of the stuff, like The Acolyte is going to be all female driven. We've got the Rey movie coming out, and there's been a lot of backlash because of the director herself, Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, who is an activist. She is going to direct that Rey movie. Now, everybody assumed that was going to be the next movie that they were going to release over there at Disney. But it's not the next Star Wars movie. The Hollywood Reporter, we're going to take a look at this article and what it says. And this is very interesting. So here we go. Star Wars Mandalorian movie a go with Jon Favreau directing. The Mandalorian and Grogu will film this year, Lucasfilm announced. And this just came out today. And here's what it says. It says, Grogu is heading to the big screen. The Mandalorian and Grogu, it's called, and that's what it's going to be called. The Mandalorian and Grogu, a new film to be directed by the Mandalorian creator Jon Favreau, is a go at Lucasfilm, and it's expected to film later this year. Favreau, Lucasfilm head Kathleen Kennedy, and Lucasfilm chief creative officer Dave Filoni will produce the feature, which the studio said will be the first Star Wars movie to go into production since 2019's Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. There have been some speculation that a film starring Daisy Ridley would be the first out of the gate, but it appears that project will take longer to hit hyperspace. And we're going to talk about why that is here in a few minutes. Goes on to say, I have loved telling stories set in the rich world that George Lucas created, says Favreau. The prospect of bringing The Mandalorian and his apprentice Grogu to the big screen is extremely exciting. The Mandalorian launched in November 2019 as the flagship show for Disney+, with the character then known as Baby Yoda becoming a pop culture phenomenon. Pedro Pascal leads the series as Din Djarin, also known as the Mandalorian, a warrior who reluctantly, at first, cares for Grogu. The show's third season bowed last year, and it has launched a number of spin-offs, including The Book of Boba Fett, which I thought was terrible, and Ahsoka, which was decent, which has a second season in development. Now, it's interesting that they mention that because as of a previous update I just did, there was no movement on Ahsoka at all, but it looks like a second season is in development. The development potentially marks a turning of the page for Lucasfilm, which has struggled to articulate a vision for what Star Wars should be on the big screen, developing multiple properties that never make it over the finish line. But last year at Star Wars Celebration in London, the Disney-owned studio revealed plans for 3 projects that seem to be moving along, including Ridley's. Others include a big-screen movie to be directed by Filoni and another set in the distant past from James Mangold. Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni have ushered into Star Wars 2 new and beloved characters, and this new story is a perfect fit for the big screen, said Kennedy. All right, guys, so there you have it. There is a new Star Wars movie that has nothing to do with the 3 that they announced at that celebration last year. I talked about that in a previous video. This movie is coming out of left field. Now, there was a lot of speculation that they were going to do The Mandalorian Season 3, that it was going to be, another season, or not Season 3, but Season 4, and that they were going to do possibly a movie, but there was never anything definitive. And there were reports that Jon Favreau had actually been fired, but it was never confirmed, and things have been kind of in the background, because like I said, they're definitely heavily female driven at this stage, and that's where they're going to put their focus. Now, the reason I think this movie is coming out and why they announce this now is they're trying to squash some of the hate and some of the animosity is being thrown towards Disney because of their agenda. And make no mistake, they have an agenda down there, and they still plan on going full force with that. But they're gonna throw this in there to hopefully appease those individuals who are angry with Disney. Now, I will tell you, these characters, the Mandalorian and Grogu, are well more beloved than Rey ever was. She is universally disliked by not just Star Wars fans, but also casual moviegoers. She is the ultimate Mary Sue in every way, shape, or form. And talking about that, I will do an update. Well, you know what? Let's go ahead and talk about it now. The plot, this is some crazy stuff. The plot for the Rey movie and why it's going to take longer to be developed is because originally it was going to be Rey was going to have a baby with the Force ghost of Kylo Ren. And this baby was actually going to have the ability to use the dark, the dark side of the Force as well as the light side of the Force and be kind of in between. And this was going to be a female, their daughter, who kind of leads all of the other recruits down there at the Jedi Academy. That changed, and supposedly the story now it has to do with bringing in John Boyega back as Finn, and they have to go fight. She's going to have to leave the Jedi Academy or maybe take some of the recruits, and they're going to have to go fight some witch of Dathomir who has the ability to use the dark side of the Force. And so you could tell that's got Filoni's hands all over it. And like I said, if they're not careful with how they're going to craft these stories, you're going to lose the general audience. Because at the end of the day, this was always about good versus evil, and they're throwing a lot of mythology into this that was never the intent of Star Wars. It was meant to keep it basic about family and about the light side and the dark side, and they've kind of moved away from that. And Filoni's good at directing. He's good at coming up with some ideas, but he's too heavy, I think, on the whole, the mythology of it, and people can get lost. I mean, if you tried to watch Ahsoka without having watched Rebels or understanding what was going on, it could be kind of confusing. Well, not kind of confusing. It can be very confusing. And even after I'd watched all this stuff, I had to go back and watch some videos on what it all meant. And so there's definitely more to be told with Ahsoka. They started several different storylines. They're going to branch out from there. We're going to see, hopefully they make an announcement of that pretty soon. If they strictly, like I said, if they strictly went full force with this Rey movie, they were going to lose a lot of people. So this is actually a smart move in their part because of how popular The Mandalorian is and how popular Grogu is. But at the same time, I think because they introduced Luke Skywalker into The Mandalorian and also they had the Book of Boba Fett and they had that episode with Ahsoka in there where she met up with Luke Skywalker. They're going to have Luke Skywalker in this film as well. We know what time period it's set in, and it was supposedly going to be Filoni's movie that was also set in this same time frame. So it looks like they're completely scrapping, The Mandalorian Season 4 and going strictly, directly into, right into doing a movie with these characters. And I'm trying to think, was it really 3 seasons? Yeah, it was 3 seasons of The Mandalorian. That third season just was not that good. Seasons 1 and 2 were great, but 3 was more about Bo-Katan than it was, The Mandalorian, although I've talked about that in the past. I'm not even going to get into that discussion now, but what do you guys think about this blockbuster news of this Mandalorian movie with Grogu called The Mandalorian Grogu, and what do you think about this supposed story for the Rey film? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. I do appreciate your support. I will see you on the next update.